So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our next session in the Leadership in Post-COVID-19 World stream. So this session is A Changing Nation, How Scotland Will Thrive in a Digital World. And I'm delighted to welcome Martin Wallace, who is the Chief Digital Officer for the Scottish Local Government Digital Office. So those of you that know Martin will realise that he needs little introduction, but for those of you that perhaps don't, so Martin is the first local government chief digital officer. Digital office was set up just coming up in 5 years ago, and since then we've worked very closely with Martin and his team, and we are currently working to build a pipeline of collaborative digital contracting activity. So prior to joining the public sector, Martin spent most of his career in the private sector, as many of us have. But it's interesting because one of Martin's hobbies is a bit of a stand-up comedian. So we've got about 50 people in this session, which is significantly more than the number of people that pay to hear Martin. So you're all very, very privileged here this morning. Usual housekeeping rules for those of you that have participated in other sessions. We're going to have plenty of time at the end for some questions and answers. And meanwhile, your video and your sound should already be muted by the team. If for some reason they're not, can you please mute them just to protect the bandwidth? So Martin's going to share his slides. So without further ado, Martin, over to you, and thank you once again for participating.
No, thank you, Hugh. I thought there was somebody at the door of letting people in to take the money for my stand-up routine today, so apologies. I'm not happy with that. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'll just flag up. So hopefully you can see my slides. If you can give me a thumbs up if you can see it, or give me a clap or a.
I'm not going to clap for you already, Martin, but yes, I can see your slides.
Again, I'm just looking for some a bit of participation there and a bit of recognition that I still am actually on stage. So thank you very much for having me, Hugh. I have plagiarised quite a few slides from Scottish Government this morning, which will come as no surprise, but I'll talk through kind of where we are and where we want to get to. So the current position we are in local authorities is that there was 2 key publications in 2021 which we have to be cognizant of just now. So there's the Audit Scotland Digital Progress of Local Government, which was released in January, talking about what has worked well, what's not working so well, and a big focus around about our need for upskilling, and more importantly around about Scottish supports to service design. The Digital Scotland strategy, which we're talking about today, which is co-written between the Scottish Government, Digital Office Improvement Service and COSLA. And we've got a couple of other things coming out shortly as well. So we've got a digital health and care refresh. The last one was 2018. They're doing a refresh strategy just now. So we'll have 2 sub-strategies, one on data, one on cloud. And then obviously there's been a manifesto pledge around about the National Care Service. So what does that mean? How's that going to be kind of linked with the other strategies we have in play? And how are we going to sort of like respond to that? And last but not least, the big thing we've all kind of seen has been the COVID response. What lessons learned can we have as a sector to really accelerate the transformation? That I don't actually really call it digital transformation anymore. I call it digital evolution, because we have evolved. We have put a lot of solutions in play quicker than probably anticipated. We've still got to upskill the staff behind the scenes to make sure they're supported, but it's now an evolution and building on those blocks that we've actually put in place. So if you look at the Audit Scotland document and the Digital Scotland strategy, the principles are pretty much interlinked. So there's no kind of real big surprises or gaps that we have to fill as we do move things forward. This is where I plagiarise Scottish Government slides. So the Digital Scotland strategy, the new digital strategy for Scotland was published on the 11th of March this year. And it was based on a process that we did through consultation. There was 240 respondents to it as well. And we very much had it in the public domain for the public and business and everybody else to actually be able to participate and help shape the way that this was produced. So why do we have a strategy updated just now? Well, the last version of the digital strategy was in 2017. It was very much focused on the Scottish Government. But we have seen really big changes since then. We've seen, wider adoption of digital approaches and methods. We've seen faster connectivity come in, kind of more with 5G. We've seen more cloud computing happen across the sector. We've seen a progression in technology, a progression in skills, and the pace of digital transformation has certainly accelerated through the last 15 months through the COVID response. The strategy in 2017 wasn't out of date, but it just was due a time for a refresh. It was due for a change to make things a bit better and a more cohesive with the Scottish Government Digital Office, which I represent. It's been here for 5 years. We work very closely with the COSLA and the Improvement Service. So it's a good time and opportunity to actually do something new and refresh it for the future. So it's a joint strategy. As I said, it was co-written between COSLA, Digital Office and Improvement Service and Scottish Government, but its also importance is linked to the National Performance Framework and Audit Scotland recommendations too as well. So it is very much trying to interlink the pieces, create core principles that we can all work from, and then other strategies that will come, such as I said, digital health and care strategy refresh, as well as whatever we do with National Care Service, will interlink into these principles as we go forward. So the process that was actually had for this was the drafting. So we started late spring, early summer last year to understand where we were with digital policy, what was working, currently underway, what was planned, and the opportunities that were there for change. The team then drafted a discussion document that went out for consultation, and as I said, we had consultation sessions run by all parties all the way through up to in September time to November time to get something finished off over Christmas for launch in the new year. It was key the early feedback that was in the draft document reflected the structure of Digital Directorate and wider Scottish Government, as well as what was actually happening in local government as well. So this time round, we wanted to make sure it was externally focused structure, so everybody had participation in how it was built. The 12-week consultation period that went out, was then put through, and the good thing was we had double the responses that we had in 2017, which probably reflects increased awareness of the value of digital at the moment and what it had the public and the public sector partners had seen through COVID last year as well. The consistent messages that came out from the consultation was the importance of inclusion was stressed. So no one left behind was a core component of that one, and building on the stuff that had been happening with Connected Scotland, with devices for vulnerable people, but also for the devices for vulnerable children as well, which Scotland Excel and Digital Office worked very closely together to support Scottish Government and COSLA on getting that out as well. The second key thing that came out of the consultation was the increasing awareness of ethics. There's a big challenge we have with ethics and how we process data, and particularly in some of the new technologies around about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how we would use that personal data too. And lastly, we got a lot of feedback about the need for building and accessing digital skills. So again, kind of correlates to what was in the Audit Scotland report, but there was a lot of support in the draft discussion and the vision for it. As I said, it was published on the 11th of March on the gov.scot website. So the engagement piece, we had a series of local government workshops, which was facilitated by ourselves and Improvement Service and COSLA. We had a simple session at the Digital Partnership Forum. So we have a Digital Partnership Forum twice a year, where we have the partners of all the councils come and they hear, show and tells, updates, what's happening, key pieces. So we actually had a workshop there as well on the day with, I think it was 86 participants. We had a number of local government submissions back individually. And then we had a series of meetings with COSLA's resource person, which is Councillor Gail McGregor, and the Scottish Government Minister, which at the time was Ivan McKee. And then the final draft was then sent to leaders in COSLA in February for sign-off, and then obviously publication on the 11th of March. So the fact is that the Digital Scotland strategy it captures main themes. It builds on new technology, but it's also about the approaches and methods, about how thinking end to end in a non-siloed way. So what that means is putting the customer first in everything we do and building the transformation around about it. As I say, it's human by default and technology by design, not the other way around. And also, as you expect, we put a number of actions into the strategy as well, so that we were able to show and apply these ideas in practice as well, and then measure progress of them going forwards. Because it's all good having a strategy, but unless you've got an action plan in the back of it and we can measure progress, it's just a piece of paper. So the key components were agreed with COSLA for the principles for digitalisation, as you can see on the screen just now. And they were informed in Audit Scotland reports as well, or by the Audit Scotland reports, I should say, for digital government, both centrally and at a local level, with Digital Office and, say, COSLA and Improvement Service working on this together. These principles set out how we needed to work as a digital nation and then run, I should say, throughout the strategy as you read through it. So things like a skilled digital workforce, skewed by design, inclusive, ethical, and user-focused, etc. And then this interlinks to the Scotland's National Performance Network, which describes our ambitions as a nation, providing a vision of well-being across economic, social, environmental factors. And it sets out strategic outcomes that they can be supported by digital, and then collectively describe what the people would expect of that as well. So the actions of the strategy were aligning to the National Performance Framework, which was key to make sure that everything was interlinked. We could have those outcomes, we could have those actions, and we could measure transformation as we move forward, or evolution, I should say, as we move forward. So the strategy is in 3 parts. We have people in place, and that looks at digital foundations, so that people can access the benefits of digital wherever they are in Scotland, what background they're from. Then the second part we have is the Stronger Digital Economy, which links to the work that was done last year in terms of what Scotland's digital sector like for economic growth. And the third is about how do we work differently and provide different digital government standards and services through the collaboration and services that we actually offer to our public. So people in place, the key components were obviously, as I say, no one left behind. So that's inclusion both at a connectivity level, at a social demographic function as well. Ethical digital nation is considering the ethical foundations, using open government principles to make sure that everybody's informed and has insight into what we're doing, and being able to actually get involved and express opinions that can then help shape policy as we go things forward, especially around the artificial intelligence and data conversations that we're going to have as we go forward. And then digital education and skills was ensuring we have the digital skills we need, and not necessarily just in the workforce, but also in the nation through education in schools as well. So that's the 3 components of where the people in place was. We then went to the strong digital economy. So that was about helping all of us become digital businesses. So helping businesses not yet operating in the digital space to reach that data and digital maturity. And then also supporting the digital technology sector. So working collaboratively on the emerging tech sector we have. We've got some significant big, small to medium-sized companies which are growing in terms of stature, in terms of digital capability. And there was a good link to the Logan report that came out last year in terms of what we're actually doing in that space in Scotland. In terms of digital government and services, this is where we talk about the collaboration more in terms of what we actually do together. So to be a true digital nation, we have to be able to work at a national and local level. We have to be able to collaborate. We have to be able to share data. We also have to have, to be able to create joined up services, and the people and the citizens expect those services to come. So a big focus around about creating public services that are accessible and easy to use for all. So a big proponent of service design. And then transforming government, changing organisations to deliver those services so we can use it in a user-centred way. So breaking down silo mentality, really kind of concentrating on, dare I say, even going back 10 years to Christie principles, and then how do we actually then make these things work to actually get the right outcomes at the right time, in the right place, with the right data to support them as well. So to get access to these, if you haven't read it already, the address is on there, and I think you get a copy of the slides, which you can click on the links if you wish to. There's also updates on Twitter at Digital Scots, and there's also a blog that Scottish Government do, which is going to be co-written and have pieces from not just Scottish Government, but also local government as well, as we progress with the actions on the digital strategy. So the next steps we have is we have a digital partnership in place in local authorities. So this is a combination of COSLA, Digital Office Improvement Service are doing kind of the finalising the action plan this week, hence the fact it's been running around ragged this week. But we have the governance of the Local Government Digital Partnership Board. And the Partnership Board is made up of COSLA, Solus, Digital Office, Scotland Excel, CMIS, SOCATIM, the Improvement Service, as well as Scottish Government as a partner. But that means we've got that kind of high level view to make sure that the actions are deliverable and across the whole piece. So we do really support those building collaborative services and processes for new services as we go forward. This will be there to support the digital actions of the strategy. And there is discussions just now about a slight change in digital partnership boards where we'll actually have a COSLA representative to chair the partnership board. So this matches other partner boards we have. So if you look at CMIS, Scotland Excel, Improvement Service, there is a COSLA lead, and then supported by the chief officer. The chief officer for the digital partnership just now is Lorraine McMillan, who's the Solus lead for digital portfolio at Solus, and also chief exec for East Rhine Council as well. But as I said, the big thing is building on the momentum we've had in the last 12 months through the pandemic, and how do we support this on an ethical and user-focused way. How my team and an office come into play supporting the councils how to be digital, so how to do digital at pace. We've got some massive programs already in collaboration with the likes of SPDS and SCVO on digital skills. So like things like digital essentials, data essentials, cyber essentials, and roll them out across the piece. We've got the expertise in the team to look at all things digital and collaborating, networking and influencing from these places, looking at the processes of advice of digital skills and leadership, developing materials for use across the sector. And we have a number of playbooks in play just now. We've launched one called the Modern Workplace Playbook through with SPDS on the skills and collaboration tools and support that staff need whilst working out in the field, because obviously we've got this new way of working in the last 15 months. But also we kind of identify and bring other kind of entities and gaps into this to fill these. So the next playbook is about to be launched, the data playbook during the summer, to look at data skills and also how do we actually approach data in a more strategic fashion across councils in Scotland, and then supporting with partners as well. And then we also kind of help with agreeing data standards, promoting new digital technology, kind of the do's and don'ts and how not to do things as well, because we do things iteratively. The thing is, we're independent of products and platforms, so taking that strategic lead alongside COSLA will help support that to make sure that we support COSLA using data and digital for policy decision making, but also just helping with that kind of support with all partners as we go forward. Didn't realise I had that last slide in there, so apologies. And I'm open for questions now, so hopefully that's on time. I know I did joke with you I was going to be 40 minutes, but that was 20 minutes. Is that all right?
It's perfect, Martin. In fact, it's the briefest I've ever heard you in all the time I've known you, so thank you for that. So just before we of course we are open for questions. So again, I would ask that you either put them in the chat, please, or alternatively, if you raise your hand, we can invite you to mention it specifically. So, obvious question for me, Martin. You said at the start, it's not about digital transformation, it's about evolution, which I thought was quite thought-provoking in itself. But then when you talked about, to be a digital nation, you have to have digital thinking. And you touched on it. So one of the things I was thinking about when you said that, and you touched on it in your second last slide, was what we've learned in the past 12 months. So do you think that the expectations across the sector have changed based on what we've had to do over the last 12 months? And do you think we can use some of that changed expectation to accelerate where we're trying to get to?
Yeah, I mean, there was an anecdote. Somebody said to me that they were passing, I think it was March the 13th last year when we had the lockdown was actually officially kind of declared, where they were walking past Edinburgh City Council buildings, and the taxi rank had been moved up opposite Edinburgh City Council because of the works at Edinburgh Waverley, and there was a sea of people leaving with desk chairs and devices and stuff going into taxis to go home, to work from home. So the expectation from the staff changed significantly in terms of working from home in these conditions. That puts on challenges in terms of, have staff got the luxury of space to be able to do that? But the citizen has had an expectation of being able to do more stuff online. A large majority of us ended up being teachers last year as well and having to do homeschooling. Now, I'm lucky my daughter's of older age, so it wasn't too much challenging. But, there's an expectation of a lot more stuff online. So we have to build on that evolution, but make the experiences better, not just for the citizen, but for our staff as well. So that's where we talk about the evolution, because we've had a kind of a brush with it. In our daily lives, we take it for granted. We don't really kind of maybe realize that we use so many apps for doing some stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot of people in Scotland that still don't have that luxury of a smartphone or data or good connectivity to be able to do that. So there's a balance there, because it's just the divide between the haves and the have-nots has widened in the last 15 months for digital. So it's about, building on the successes of the good things, learning from what hasn't worked so well, what are the priorities, and then building that evolution pathway on the back of that. Because the fact is, digital's never going to go away. The digital's just evolving. I used to work for BlackBerry, as you know, Hugh, and that was the first original smartphone manufacturer. Forget your iPhones. Email on the move was a big thing 20 years ago. But that's now changed into having a piece of glass that gives you everything, more power than they say that took Neil Armstrong to the moon. But it's a double-edged sword, because it's exacerbating our societal problems around about digital and exclusion, as well as giving people a leg up in terms of other ways of working. So we really need to have to build on what's happened and evolve from it.
So thanks, Martin. And I guess related to that, we've got a question from Leslie Gilmartin. So thanks for that, Leslie. And Leslie's thinking about, no one left behind, and she quite correctly identifies that the obvious groups are socioeconomic and disability. But what else are you finding? And I think that ties in with what you've just said. So what else are you finding, Martin?
So I think there's this expectation that young people know how to do digital. I know friends of mine who are primary school teachers, secondary school teachers, who are maybe starting their career in that space, who are just kind of, oh my God, there's an expectation. Well, you know how to use Microsoft Office, you know how to do online learning and all that. No, we don't. So there's almost like this myth that we have to debunk as well. And again, it also comes back to, if we're giving devices for people, to vulnerable people, saying, well, we'll give a device to people and they'll be able to do stuff with public sector online. Excuse my friends, that's not sexy. that's not going to go, wow, I'm going to run out and get a laptop because I can go and to DVLA and pay for my road tax. That's nothing. The experiences have to be personable to that person. So it's about that holistic view and really looking at the customer and looking at the citizen to understand what matters to you. How can I make your life easier? Not just a public service piece, but just in other ways. Is there ways we can entice you using digital technology for a better way of living, for job hunting, for entertainment, for hobbies, etc. And that's an encompassing piece, rather than thinking that one thing is one hook that's going to get them. People are multidimensional beings. It's going to take a wee while to get there. And I think that the big thing is there's been a lot of myths around about connectivity. I should know, I've worked, as you know, for a telecoms company, since I've had many jobs before this, actually, Hugh. But I worked for a telecommunications company for 9 years. Was public affairs in Scotland for part of it as well, and connectivity is a big thing. And we've got this belief that, well, there's no connectivity in Scotland. Now, there is pockets where we don't have. There's pockets where we probably don't want it to be, because we want to be able to switch off and not get hassled by WhatsApp from yourself, Hugh, when you're on holiday. But at the same time, we have to look at the infrastructure and what investment needs to be done there, and also new ways of working, because the not spots are always going to be not spots, because the carriers don't see the benefit of it, because it's a small populace it's going to serve once we switch it on. So how do we actually create a new business model that's actually going to get them to entice to make the investment to give us the connectivity we need in Scotland, to mean that we have ubiquitous services, 5G across everywhere. I mean, we talk about 5G, and some of the places don't even have GSM basic voice just now. And so how do we get these things in play to make things happen? One of the catalysts for this, analog to digital telephone switchover in 2013, we have to be cognizant of, because your telephone line in your house will switch over to voice over IP, voice over broadband. So that gives us a challenge as well as an opportunity around about telecare, which we're working with you guys with just now for digital telecare switchover. So with that, we need to have infrastructure, and it means that we're actually now seeing that connectivity is now becoming a critical factor in terms of business recovery and business continuity, which we really have to work together to get something in play that actually benefits all, not just the citizen, but business, and also in terms of health and care and well-being.
I think there's an interesting point you made about connectivity, because one of the challenges that we have is that expectations are rising. And the example we always use within the procurement world, Martin, is that when you've got a user interface such as Amazon, and people can procure pretty much anything they want from Amazon at the click of a button, then there's an expectation that the same e-commerce applicability should be available in the workplace. So do you agree that expectations are rising almost exponentially as well?
Yeah, I mean, retail was one of the first to be disrupted by digital 10, 15 years ago. The rise of Amazon's obviously older than that. I worked with retail 15 years ago. Burberry did an experience store in Regent Street where you could go in, had a virtual mirror, and you could actually take one outfit in, but it'd actually show you other outfits or other matching stuff in the mirror. So you'd actually have a virtual use. You could try it on in the store without having to go and pick up the pieces and try it on. Obviously, nothing's fitted me the size I am. I know that before you even start that, I'm not a Burberry person, right? But there is that kind of expectation that what we have, in our private life is the same in public sector. And it seems to be sometimes our thinking stops at the front door saying, well, we can't do that here because of X, Y, Z. No, we potentially could. We could create an Amazon corporate store. I did speak to Amazon a couple of years ago, talking about non-directed care and saying, could we borrow your platform or use your platform and then have, people have a wallet, we can measure the metrics, we can get customer reviews, and then you could actually have all the stuff that's entitled to them in that space, and they can take their selection. It comes off their wallet, and hey, press, you've got it. Amazon went, oh my god, that's a really good idea, but no, that's our bread and butter, our white, our golden chariot. You can't take that away. So there is new ways of working and new ways of thinking, but we have to baseline it again in terms of investment expectation, and also we have to consider, well, is this going to make life easier, or is it just a vanity project? That's the key thing. Is it really going to give us the outcomes we want? Because a lot of people that use some of these services like non-directed care do not have digital skills. A lot, because of the conditions they're in, socioeconomic conditions they're in. So we have to balance it out of, is it a good idea, or is it backed with facts? Feelings are not facts. So it could be a good feeling of something razzmatazz, but is it actually factually based on evidence we have from the electorate and the citizens to say that's what we actually need and what we want?
Yeah. Martin, Julie's asked a question, and it's about the ongoing challenge about getting true collaboration. So, and good question. So, how can we jointly improve collaboration?
I think it's starting with the end in mind. So it's all about the citizen. It's all about the customer, and the citizen could be our members of staff as well. What do our staff want? What do our customers, what do our citizens need? And building around about that. It shouldn't matter what organisation you come from. We've all got expertise, and we're there. So your procurement expertise, we've got the digital expertise. So how do we work together to do this? And a good example of that would be, CMIS are doing early years childcare, and also they've got the CMIS 2 platform. We've got a digital assurance board which helped CMIS with some tricky GDPR and cybersecurity conditions that were being created because policy was saying one thing, and we're saying, well, that actually leaves people exposed and could be a security risk. But through true collaboration of the Digital Assurance Board, which is made up of SOCOTIM, Digital Office, CMIS, Improvement Service, and Andy Greeland, our cybersecurity CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, we're able to tackle that together as a collaborative. So it's about working around the business problem. It's not about the technology. Technology is 20% of the problem. 80% is the customer. It's the business challenge and the culture we have to tackle first, and then supported by technology. So like I said in the presentation, it's human by default, technology by design. So it's all about the human element. How do we actually make the collaborative response around the human element, and then work together to actually deliver that service for them?
Yeah, I agree. So, so thanks, Martin. So once again, we're out of time, but thanks very much for supporting us this morning, Martin. Thanks for everyone that joined us.